It's rather interesting that I chose to break in between chapters 255 and 256 because they were actually published in the same issue of Weekly Shonen Jump as part of a 1990 color special. Both chapters had title pages along the same theme, with Goku and Piccolo appearing to take driving lessons. The reader was encouraged to spot the differences between the two. Now, I don't know if it's ever been officially confirmed that this served as an inspiration, but it is worth noting how similar in premise this is to an episode the TV series would make a couple of years later, where Goku and Piccolo similarly take driving lessons, and similarly break a lot of things. But as thrilling as that is, let's not forget that Gohan and Kuririn are currently being pursued by a giant alien durian. However, Kuririn, like Goku before him, proves he can blind people with the Taioken, once again taking away a perpetually useful move that made Ten Shinhan fairly unique. Come on, Kuririn, you already have your own method of blinding people. Don't worry, Ten Shinhan, when you come back to life, I'm sure you'll be just as important a character as you were before you died. With Dodoria blinded, the duo are ultimately able to escape with the Namekian child. Dodoria blows up the entire area just to be sure he killed them, but before he can head back, Vegeta knocks him out of the sky. He has no idea why Dodoria went off on his own, but picking off Frieza's henchmen one by one is exactly what he'd been trying to do. Vegeta taunts Dodoria by destroying his own scouter, the last remaining one. You really have to be careful, Vegeta, those things don't just pop out of thin air. Well, except for this one, since Vegeta refused to take a scouter with him when he left, only to magically have one upon reaching planet Namek. He very quickly subdues Dodoria until Dodoria manages to get him to let his guard down by revealing the truth about planet Vegeta. It was not destroyed by a meteorite as Raditz had claimed to Goku. After all, what does Raditz know? Nearly everything he told Goku is going to be retconned away eventually. Instead, it was Freeza who destroyed the planet, apparently fearing that the power of combined Saiyans was beginning to be a threat to him. Frieza chose to spare Vegeta due to him being the Saiyan Prince. By the way, this may come as a surprise, but this is the first time that particular title is ever bestowed to Vegeta. But all Vegeta's ego hears is that Frieza is afraid of Saiyans and he blows Dodoria away. This is also when Vegeta first mentions the concept that Saiyans grow stronger after every battle, and that they particularly boost after recovering from severe injuries, like he'd sustained on Earth. They're going to try to shoehorn this retroactively into continuity. Kuririn's going to say that Goku always did that too, but I can't think of a single time that such a thing is ever apparent, especially not anything Kuririn was present for. It's also an idea that is not going to continue past this arc aside from one other time, but while it's here, it's mainly going to be used to explain how the Saiyans are going to make up the massive numbers gap between themselves and Frieza. And it's also going to contribute heavily to the non-Saiyan characters becoming completely outclassed. I don't have a problem with the idea. I don't like some of the implications, nor do I like the absolute ballooning of battle power numbers that renders it necessary, but it will be another strategic element in this story, and I think from that perspective it is handled fairly well. If Kuririn and the others think they're out of the woods, they're wrong. Before Dodoria died, he pieced together the people he'd been following must be Earthlings. Vegeta doesn't believe there are Earthlings on the planet, but he decides to test out his new key-sensing ability to find them. That was why he destroyed his scouter, to show off to Frieza's men he no longer needed them. The fact that Vegeta picks up this skill pretty much immediately is also something that doesn't really bother me. I feel like it should, due to there being such a spiritual aspect to it that Vegeta notably lacks, and it goes against what I considered a positive in the last arc, that while the Earthlings were outclassed in strength, they had this skill that their more technologically savvy enemies lacked. But I actually rather like it due to just how brazenly Vegeta ignores any rules to it. He never refers to it as ki, but instead retains his group's nomenclature of power. He's totally ignorant of the deeper aspects of it, he just believes that since another Saiyan did it, he could do it too. And so he does, just like how he taught himself to manipulate his battle power. It balances out the different factions, allowing him to track even when Frieza can't, although not as well as the Earthlings. And it proves just how smart, resourceful, and deadly Vegeta is. However, Vegeta is inexperienced, so when he picks up the hero's trail, he assumes it's simply a fish. But since he has learned through Dodoria that Frieza no longer has scouters, he decides to find a Namekian village of his own. He can take one Dragon Ball to keep Frieza from having all 7, and he can do whatever he wants to get said Dragon Ball without worrying about Frieza tracking him. Despite now being written as a prince, Vegeta is still being portrayed as much more rough around the edges than Frieza and his underlings. There are no attempts at decorum or feigning regret at having to commit horrible atrocities. He simply demands the Dragon Ball, and when the Namekians don't cooperate, he slaughters them. Back at the cave where Bluma has set up a capsule house, we learn more about Namekians. They don't eat food, they only drink water. Even the plants they grow, the Ajisa, are only for aesthetic purposes, to try to revegetate the planet after the calamity. So apparently either Mr. Popo misremembered the story, or God was full of crap when he whined about it being hard to find food. Unlike Piccolo's family, who are named after musical instruments, the pun of choice for native Namekians is snails or slugs. The kid, Dende, is named for Denden Mushi, a word for snail. Likewise, his ill-fated brother Cargo is named for escargot. But Dende does confirm that the way Piccolo gave birth was not a demon exclusive. All the current Namekians are the children of their Saichoro, or Grand Elder, who laid them as eggs through his mouth. Bluma is stunned and disappointed to learn there is no distinction between sexes for Namekians, which is rather amusing. And, small a moment though it is, I like how Toriyama writes this. It's difficult sometimes to make a culture that is truly alien. We are humans, so different species we make up are almost always undoubtedly going to be us, but different. As in, we're still the starting point with certain attributes dialed up or dialed down. Take Star Trek. They have us, but really into being warriors. Us, but really greedy. Us, but really emotionless. An ancient Rome version of us, but in space. And I don't take issue with that. They have to be relatable to us. But take an earlier scene, for example. Yes, the Namekians realistically have their own language, but when Freeza tells them to use his language, they know exactly what that is, and every single one of them knows how to speak it. Compare that to this scene where Dende expresses complete bewilderment over this idea of two types of Namekians. That is absolutely perfect. To a species that doesn't reproduce sexually, the concept would be strange to say the least. Then again, we're going to learn later that there are two different types of Namekians, Dragon Clan and Warrior type, and although they're not based around reproductive compatibility, you would think that Dende would assume that that was what she was talking about. Also, what about that fish we saw earlier? Are all life forms on the planet asexual, or just the Namekians? You'd think it would have to be all or most for Dende to be confused. I don't know. I feel I'm going back on my praise now. Anyway, Gohan and Kurudin sense the slaughter of more Namekians, and after they explain to him who they are, Dende wants to take Kurudin to see this Grand Elder. The two of them fly off because, of course, Dende can fly. Everyone can fly now, even non-combatant children. Vegeta finds his Dragon Ball, the Sushenshu, and submerges it in a nearby lake for safekeeping. Too bad he doesn't have Frieza's ability to just have Dragon Balls fly behind him. Sure makes the whole portability issue moot. In space, Goku is contacted by Kaio. It turns out that all the dead fighters got to keep their bodies in the afterlife and have made it to Kaio's planet for training. So let's hope that no one decides to check those freezer capsules they put the bodies in, or they'll be in for something of a shock. Goku correctly assumes Yamcha, Ten Shinhan, and Piccolo are there. Looks like Piccolo's good enough now to get into heaven. However, he assumes the fourth is Kami-sama, but he didn't come along. It's Chaozu instead. Kami-sama was able to give him a new body. Goku congratulating Chaozu is the closest they come to speaking to each other in the entire series. But considering only Kaio and Yamcha, who is actually touching Kaio, hear Goku when he talks about Frieza, it would stand to reason Chaozu wouldn't have been able to hear Goku then either. When Kaio ascertains it is indeed Frieza on Namek, he panics, and commands Goku not to attempt to fight him. He refuses to even train the other four unless they promise to likewise stay away from Frieza, and then he insists they make him laugh before he trains them. Why? He only made Goku do that because he didn't realize Goku wanted training in martial arts. He knows full well these four are here to fight, so there's no reason for him to do this. And the only payoff we get is a stunned look from them because we never see them actually pass the test. All I can say is Kurudin is having some fantastic luck because Vegeta manages to track him again as he and Dende fly, but Vegeta ends up sensing Zarbon, who was sent to look for more villages, and goes after him instead. Zarbon warns Vegeta that what Frieza was scared of was the power of combined science, and that immortality alone is not enough to beat Frieza, but Vegeta is too sure of himself from his victories against Q.E. and Dodoria. Vegeta manages to knock Zarbon around quite a bit, although it's clear that Zarbon is at least putting up a fight, unlike his two predecessors. However, Zarbon has a secret. He takes pride in his appearance. That's not the big secret. What is that beauty gets in the way of his true power. It turns out that Zarbon can transform into a monstrous, noseless Hulk, and this form finally puts an end to Vegeta's winning streak. Of 2. And just before Zarbon pile drives him into the bottom of a lake and leaves him for dead, he tells Vegeta that Frieza can transform too. Now, obviously, subsequent years of constant Dragon Ball character transformations have left me a bit jaded, but between this and Kaio's panicked warnings, the series continues to add cryptic reasons as to why Frieza is far and above anything else our heroes have ever faced before. Back at Frieza's main ship, he is impressed that Zarbon took out Vegeta, but incredulous that Zarbon didn't bother to confirm Vegeta was dead, presumably simply because he didn't want to get wet. Just then, fan-favorite minion and all-around awesome philanthropic stud Appule arrives to say he found the remains of the village that Vegeta attacked. So now it's fortuitous that Zarbon let Vegeta live because they need to find out what he did with the Dragon Ball. If Zarbon was smart, he'd then say, "Oh, yeah, that's exactly why I did that." Freeza also tells Appule to alert something called the Ginyu Special Force to come to Planet Namek and to bring scouters. Zarbon doesn't see the need in getting the Ginyu involved, but Freeza just tells him to do his own job properly before he starts complaining about the way Freeza does things, and then wonders to himself about something called a Super Saiyan. When Vegeta and Zarbon started fighting, Krududin took the chance to really book it, so now he and Dende have arrived at the Grand Elder's house, on top of a giant vertical mountain phallus, and are greeted by his attendant, Nail. Nail is also just short for snail. Krududin thinks to himself that Nail's ki is higher than the other Namekians he's seen, and also that he looks just like Piccolo. It's hard to tell with Namekians, honestly, they all look alike, but sure, I'll roll with it. So with those attributes, you just know this guy's going to be important later. Yup, Nail's role is going to totally not be a disappointment. He's going to be huge. But not nearly as huge as the guy in the chair. And I have to hand it to him, he has a pretty handy security system. He's on the second floor of a house that has no stairs. If you can't fly or don't bring a huge ladder, you're never going to get to him. But then again, if you make it to the top of this thing, I suppose that's nothing by comparison. And as we've established, even children can fly. You know what? I take it back. Anyone can get to this guy. They probably just ran out of building materials to finish the floor. Krududin spins the whole situation like a politician. I know people are taking your Dragon Balls to make their own wish, but I want to help you by taking your Dragon Ball so I can make my own wish. Amazingly, this works. The Grand Elder talks a lot about future plot points like Super Saiyans and how much stronger the Child of Katats would be if he hadn't split into Piccolo and God, and since the Grand Elder created the Dragon Balls, it means when he dies, which he assures them is not far off, the Dragon Balls will cease to exist. He also unlocks Krududin's dormant power simply by placing a hand on his head. Now, I know what you're thinking. You think I hate this power-up because, like the Super God Water, it takes no effort to achieve it. It's an instant power-up. But if you're thinking that, you'd be wrong, actually. While it's true there is no training, either physical or mental, to unlock this, it is most certainly earned. Freeza and Vegeta take the Dragon Balls by force, with no respect for their importance or even the lives of the Namekian people. Gohan and Krududin, by contrast, risk their lives to save a Namekian. They acquire the trust of the Namekian people. They ask for the Dragon Balls. They go to the kind of effort their enemies would never expend. And so, through their virtue, they are rewarded with the power needed to help them survive. It is the most narratively appropriate power-up this arc provides, so this gets a big seal of approval from me. Meanwhile, just like on Earth, Vegeta has taken his defeat and turned it to his own advantage. Now that Frieza has healed him, he's stronger than ever, just strong enough to lock horns with the mighty Appule. And he's exactly where he needs to be, unsupervised in Frieza's ship with Frieza's Dragon Balls. The balance of power is shifting. But next time, we leave planet Namek to check back on planet Earth, where the world's smartest brain wants the world's strongest body. Good thing Goku is there and not in space. Good thing Gohan and Krududin are there to fight back instead of on Namek. Good thing Piccolo is alive. Everything makes sense, I'm sure.